your seat. Thank you. As a courtesy to our presenters and to those around you, we ask you at this time to please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. Our program's about to begin. Please find your seat. As a courtesy to our presenters and to those around you, we ask you at this time to please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. Our program's about to begin. Please find your seat. We ask you at this time to please rise for the national anthems of the United States of America, Canada, and Israel, to be sung by Jacob Krause.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Quand ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Kolod baleva penima, nefesh Yehudi homia, ulfate Mizrach kadima, ein Letzion Sophia. Od lo avda tikvatenu, ha-tikva bachnot alpaim, lihyotam chofshi be'atzenu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. Lihyotam chofshi be'atzenu, v'Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim.
It's the shared joy as a child learns their first Hebrew word. The security a family feels as they proudly walk into their synagogue. The stability and care a Holocaust survivor can count on. It's moments like this, moments that keep our community going, moments that connect us to tradition, that inspire the next generation. Thanks to your generosity, we create moments that build and sustain the flourishing Jewish communities of tomorrow. From the $292 million we invest annually into Jewish education, to the 80,000 North Americans we send to Israel each year. Together, we ignite a lifetime of Jewish pride and connection. Whether it's the $70 million invested in inclusive programming, to the initiatives like Live Secure that ensure our communities are safe, secure, and ready to respond to anti-Semitism. Together, we create space for everyone to participate in Jewish life. And together, we distribute $170 million annually to care for the most vulnerable members of our community. Thank you for creating moments that impact you, our community, and 70 countries around the world. Together, let's create moments that last a lifetime.
Please welcome the board chair of the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit, Gary Torgo, along with the local Detroit Hevra.
Okay, behind me I have the 25 Detroiters who didn't have to fight for a hotel room. Give them a giant welcome. So the last time we had something as exciting as this was 2006 in Detroit, when the Steelers beat the Seahawks in the last Super Bowl in Detroit. And in those days, Detroit didn't look like Detroit. Most people that came for the Super Bowl had to head out to the suburbs for a hotel room. We painted the streets and the buildings because they weren't quite up to it. Today, Detroit, as you can see, is a new town, tremendous vigor, and we're thrilled to have all of you here with us. Thank you so much for coming. On behalf of Detroit, I want to welcome some dignitaries. First, our chair, the national chair of the JFNA, Julie Platt from California. Our vice chair from the forgotten city of Chicago, David Brown. And the CEO of the JFNA, and I should remind everybody that a really important thing happened just last week at the JFNA. We just signed Eric Fingerhut to a new 6-year contract, so he's with us for life. We want to thank your board chairs, Brett and Danielle, for having the foresight to come to Detroit for the cabinet retreat. Where are you, Brett? There you are. Danielle, thank you so much for bringing us. I am a cabinet alum, and I remember my retreat was in Arizona. It was very hot, not a lot of fun, nothing like Detroit. We're thrilled that you finally made the right decision. Congratulations for coming to Detroit. Tomorrow night, I'm thrilled to welcome you to our bank headquarters, which is the Huntington Tower. It's a brand new building in downtown Detroit. We'll be thrilled to host you all here, and we can't wait for us to join together with you for the most fantastic, largest ever retreat in the history of the Young Leadership Cabinet. On behalf of all of the Chevra of Detroit, we're thrilled to have you. Welcome to Detroit.
Please welcome the immediate past chairs for the National Young Leadership Cabinet, Lauren Danneman and Jake Shapiro.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm Lauren Danneman. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm a seventh year.
And I'm Jake Shapiro from Chicago, a sixth year.
We would like to make some thank yous today. And we first would like to start with Julie, Eric, David, Carolyn, and Gary for your leadership, your inspiration, and your vision for the past year, the past several years, and the vision you have for the future for Cabinet and for Federation, and we thank you. Oh, and Shira Hutt, we thank you also. We thank you all for the wonderful inspiration you've all given us and the inspiration to move forward.
I want to echo Lauren's thanks to the senior staff and lay leadership, and also thank the cabinet staff, and specifically Ben Schindler, for the opportunity of a lifetime. This has been an incredible honor for both of us. And Ben, we've had the privilege of working with you and watching your transition from a newer team member with Cabinet to complete control, confidence, and we've been able to witness your vision for the future of this program come together and watch you implement it. We are extremely lucky to have your talent, and we are unbelievably appreciative that you've dedicated your career to creating the next generation of Jewish leaders. And Shana, thank you so much for stepping back in this year and helping Ben, especially with this retreat. We were light on staff, as everyone knows, and this is just remarkable what you were able to pull off. So thank you so much.
Now, Jake and I could not do everything we've done this year without an amazing group of people behind us. So we would like to thank our executive team. And if you're in the room, could you please stand so you can be acknowledged for the incredible work you've all done this year?
Where'd they all go? Now for Brett and Danielle. This really should be the other way around, because Lauren and I both look up to you so much. You guys have been incredible friends, leaders, mentors, to me and to my family. You both carry yourselves the right way. You represent the Jewish community to the fullest extent. And as Lauren said, everybody in this room is a volunteer. People are on the executive team, some are not. Everyone is a leader back in their community at home, and that's really what this entire retreat is about, is volunteering our time and our resources to help those in need. And that is the perfect embodiment of Brett and Danielle. You two are selfless, you're humble, you're incredibly gracious, and you're already doing an incredible job leading this organization, and you've only just started. Any organization must progress in order to improve, and we are certainly going to accomplish that with your leadership. So thank you for taking up the mantle, and it now gives us great pleasure to officially pass the gavel to both of you.
Thank you, Lauren and Jake, for your service to Cabinet this past year and your extraordinary leaders. Brett and I are grateful for your friendship. You both have been exemplary stewards of this incredible organization. We hope to continue your Cabinet legacy and carry the torch forward this year. May this just be the beginning of a long life of success as you continue to make a tremendous impact on the Jewish community. Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome to Cabinet Retreat 2023. I am Danielle Gross, a seventh year from Phoenix, Arizona.
And I am Brett Tansman, a seventh year from Greater Metro West, New Jersey. We are proud to be cabinet co-chairs and chevre with all of you. My friend Sandy is 91 years old. He is on the board with me of the Greater Metro West Federation. And he is one of our earliest cabinet members. I had the privilege of learning from him about the early days of cabinet. In the summer of 1968, he arrived at a Laguna Beach hotel with 40 or 50 other Jewish men to talk about the future of our Jewish community and how to support it. We are now in year 60. That was year 5. One of the earliest cabinet gatherings, 55 years ago. He said this was a transformational experience. The powerful people in the room, many who have made a huge impact to our Jewish world. This is powerful. This is our legacy. And these early members really set the stage for us to be successful. Sandy is still involved at 91. Why is that? He would probably say that it is because of cabinet. Imagine that, a lifetime of Jewish service. Our cabinet community has grown in immense ways. We are no longer a gathering of 40 to 50 men. Clearly, look around. We are a gathering of hundreds of people. Together, we span North America, from big cities and small towns. Some of us did not grow up Jewish. Some went to Jewish day schools, Jewish camps, and more. We span the community. But somehow, all of us ended up here in Detroit as part of the National Young Leadership Cabinet. We are reflecting some of the diversity of our world and Jewish communities. And as a result, Cabinet is even stronger than it was those 55 years ago. As strong as they were, we have gone from strength to strength. So, from Laguna Beach to here in Detroit, there is a deep history and the next chapter that is to be written by us.
On the eve of the 60th anniversary of Cabinet, with this rich history and bright future, Brett and I have chosen 60 for our theme. The letter Samech represents 60. It also means to support. It is the divine power to support and lift up the fallen one. As you can see, a Samech is connected and creates a circle. It's an endless cycle, and it is connected all the way around. That endless cycle also represents sustainability. As we move to our next generation of cabinet leadership, we need to continue that connection. We need to support each other and support the community and create a connection locally with Israel and around the world. This is our challenge as we enter this year, to continue the support and create the connection across all Jewry and other faiths. We need to keep the circle connected. 60 years of being the cornerstone of Jewish leadership development. 6 decades of inspiring leadership dedication and service to the Jewish community. 6 decades of empowering young minds to become catalysts of positive change. Together, we will create a force for good that resonates far beyond our community. Our alumni network of over 4,300 stands as a testament to the power of these principles in action. Their accomplishments have had a profound impact on the Jewish community and beyond. They have carried the torch of leadership, illuminating the path for others to follow, and they have passed it to us. Now, as we look towards the future, it is crucial that we continue to build upon this legacy. Our vision for the next 60 years is clear: to create the most impactful leaders, ready to face tomorrow's challenges with unwavering determination and compassion. Our Jewish communities are experiencing an all-time high rate of anti-Semitic incidents. Our communities are sometimes divided by different beliefs. Our communities are changing in wonderful and sometimes challenging ways. We are concerned about both the current events in Israel and ensuring support for the Jewish state. As you all know, Israel is experiencing a difficult time, traumatic and historic period. As Jews in North America, we are truly concerned about the extremely divisive nature of the debate. It is our job to help bring unity and advocate for dialogue and to support our beloved Jewish state and all of its people. Within Cabinet, we are giving Chevra the skills and knowledge to engage, to be in the arena, and to lead. We have sessions at Retreat where you can really dig into these challenges. So let us stand united in celebration of our past and the promise of the future. Let us be the change we wish to see in the world, lighting up the darkness with our collective passion. As the founder of Cabinet, Rabbi Herbert Friedman said, Cabinet is about raising people by strengthening their individual Jewish identities, linking their hearts and souls to the land of Israel and the worldwide people of Israel. This has not changed over 6 decades later. Congratulations to 60 years of National Young Leadership Cabinet. May the flame of leadership continue to burn brightly in each and every one of us. Thank you. And now I welcome Jewish Federation CEO and President Eric Fingerhut.
Sing with me. Hine matov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. It truly is so wonderful for us to be together, for us to sit together as one. Thank you for all making the commitment to be part of this National Young Leadership Cabinet and for being part of this retreat these next few days. You know, our tradition teaches Marbei Yeshiva, Marbei Chachma. Yeshiva comes from the same word as Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. The more that we are together and the more that we are learning together, Marbei Chachma, the more wisdom we will generate, the more learning we will generate together, and the more effective that we will be together. So last week there was a Jewish holiday. Who knows what it was? Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is the 9th of Av. What do we commemorate on Tisha B'Av? The destructions of the temples, right? And also other calamities throughout Jewish history. It's clearly the saddest day of the Jewish year. It plunges us to the depths of our feelings of the calamities that have befallen the Jewish people. This week there's a holiday. It actually begins tomorrow night. Who knows what that one is? Tu B'Av, right? Tu B'Av. What does Tu B'Av stand for? It's the Tet and the Vav. That's why it's 2. 9 plus 6. You know, we don't say 15 because we don't use the Yud Hey because that would look like God's name. Instead, we say Tu B'Av for the 15th of the month of Av. What happens on Tu B'Av? It's a love day. It's the Jewish Valentine's Day, right? It's one of the happiest days of the year. In fact, the Mishnah says, our tradition says, that there was no happier day than Tu B'Av. And by the way, this isn't just in ancient times when the women would go out and dressed in white, dancing in the vineyards, and this would the great day of all the matchmaking. But it's even to this day, right? If you look a quick Google search, you'll see Tu B'Av parties in Los Angeles and New York. There's a huge concert in Jerusalem. There's more weddings on Tu B'Av in Israel than any other day of the year. How is it possible that we go from the depths of destruction in 1 week, the depths of despair, to the highest point of love in just 1 week. You know, I was thinking about this. I was remembering that when I was a freshman in college, I think did everybody take Intro to Psych freshman year of college? It must have been like an easy course, right? Everybody probably said, your advisors probably said, take this, you don't have to do it, there won't be a lot of homework, it's a big lecture class. So the only thing I remember from Intro to Psych in my first year, freshman year of college, was this concept that the professor called cognitive dissonance. You know, cognitive dissonance, it's the ability to hold two different ideas in your mind at the same time that could be competing ideas and actually act on both of those ideas. So that's what I think the Tisha B'Av, from the depths of destruction to the Tu B'Av, to the greatest, the happiest day of the year represents. Is how can we have both of those ideas in our head? And if we think that's only in our history and our tradition, of course, it's our Jewish lives today as well. Right? Think about the world in which we live. Danielle, in her beautiful remarks just now, referenced the protests that are going on in Israel, and it's clearly a challenging time for us politically in the state of Israel. And yet, even as those protests were going on last week, what else was happening? The president of Israel, President Herzog, spoke to a joint session of Congress, received a bipartisan standing ovation on the 75th anniversary of Israel from the Congress of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation in the world, cheering 75 years of Israel's independence. Even as the protests were going on, 3,000 Olim from Ethiopia, with the help of the Jewish federations across North America and our partners, the Jewish Agency, we brought 3,000 more Olim from Ethiopia. And in the last year, did you know this? In the last year, there were more Olim to Israel from Eastern Europe because of the war in Ukraine and Russia, over 50,000, than any year since the fall of the Soviet Union. Any year since the fall of the Soviet Union. So here we are, right, on one hand, in this moment of political crisis, and on the other hand, we're experiencing some of the greatest accomplishments and the greatest highs of the Jewish state in its remarkable history. And then, of course, we have the war in Ukraine. This is the worst war in Europe since World War II. It's ongoing. Don't make any mistake about there. Just this week, the Hillel in Odessa, a Hillel that I have visited personally when I was privileged to be that of Hillel, was bombed. And it was an active Hillel. This wasn't an empty building. Was bombed together with all, continuing destruction across Ukraine. And so we're facing this terrible global challenge, and the countries of the world, the powerful countries of the world, don't know yet how to bring that war after a year and a half to an end. And yet, in the face of the greatest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II, and one of the greatest challenges to the Jewish communities in Europe since World War II, certainly the greatest challenge, what did we accomplish? We collectively, the Jewish federations across North America, together with our partners in the Jewish Agency and JDC and so many other partners, every single Jew that needed to be saved from the war in Ukraine was saved. Every single Jewish family that needed to come and wanted to come to Israel was brought to Israel. Everybody left in Ukraine that needs help with medicine and food and shelter has received that medicine and food and shelter. From the depths of this worst war to the greatest accomplishment, collective accomplishment of our people. And Danielle also mentioned the rise in anti-Semitism in America, and it's true. It's true. We're experiencing perhaps the greatest increase in anti-Semitic, certainly the greatest increase in violent attacks. Even today, we're still dealing with the after effects of because of the trial of the shooter in Pittsburgh, which was in 2018, but was the single worst anti-Semitic violent attack in the history of the United States of America. And yet, We have in our government here in America Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, perhaps the greatest scholar of Holocaust and anti-Semitism in the world, serving as an ambassador of the United States on this subject. We have an entire government plan, not contributing to anti-Semitism, but trying to fight anti-Semitism. Thanks to your lobbying of the Advocacy Corps and those of you involved in our advocacy, we've helped increase the funding from government for our security. Thanks to all of the federations across North America, we're growing our security programs through our Live Secure campaign. When the shooting happened in Pittsburgh in 2018, there were maybe 15 or 20 communities through their federations that had community security initiatives. Today there are 93, and in another year and a half, every single community will be covered. And through each of your community relations efforts and your government relations efforts in each of your federations, every one of you is in touch with your local officials and your local police and your and other civic and ethnic groups. My goodness, even today here at the National Young Leadership Cabinet, the governor of the state of Michigan is coming to address us today in this hotel. These are the good news. This is the Tu B'Av of our story. So, how do we lead through a period of cognitive dissonance, right? How do we lead through a period where we are both, on one hand, experiencing the depths of Tisha B'Av and the lift and the love of Tu B'Av? Well, first of all, we lead with hope. We lead with optimism. We lead with knowledge, we lead with skill, all those things that you're here to grow and to develop here at this cabinet retreat. We build lasting institutions, 60 years of cabinet, Jewish federations, annual campaigns, year in and year out. You know, I know that when you call your donors and you say it's time for that annual campaign gift again, they say, why do we do this every year? Well, is there a year where we don't need to be ready for anti-Semitism, to be fighting anti-Semitism in our communities? Is there a year where we don't want to send our kids to camp? Is there a year where we don't want our seniors to be cared for? Not a year. We build lasting institutions, and we're prepared because of those lasting institutions for emergencies like Ukraine. You know, you don't build a fire department when the house is on fire. In every one of your communities, you pay your taxes to support the fire department, and you make sure the equipment is ready, and you make sure people are trained. You do that so you're ready when the fire breaks out. That's why we were able to save everybody in Ukraine. That's why we're able to respond to this rise of anti-Semitism, because of the ongoing commitment. So first of all, we build lasting institutions, and we do it with optimism and hope and resilience. Secondly, how we lead through this moment is we realize that we don't do it alone. We don't do it alone. You know, we Jews are not we're not a lonely people. We don't live on mountaintops. We don't live on Walden Pond. We don't think getting away is the ultimate. We live in community. We pray as a community. We mourn as a community. We celebrate as a community, and we care for each other as a community. We are a communal people, and it's our communal action together that helps us accomplish our goals. We put up this first. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, probably the greatest teacher of our time, said the community is a microcosm of a nation. If you think about it, each of you comes from different communities. And you could say, well, Detroit is different than Cleveland, where I grew up, is different than New York, is different than... Of course they're different, but they all have so much in common. Our communities have so much in common together. We're all in the business of building strong and successful and future-oriented and flourishing Jewish communities, communities that are healthy and that are safe and that are caring and that are welcoming and inclusive and that are educated and engaged, that are involved in the broader community and that are connected to Israel and our global Jewish people. Each of our communities is a microcosm of our Jewish nation. And that's why we come together as cabinet. That's why we come together as the Jewish Federations of North America, so that we can build this together. And finally, we lead. Did I do that right? Finally, we lead, thank you, by appreciating the order in which we do our work. Of course, each of us cares and is deeply committed to our families and to making sure that those we love are cared for and have the support they need. And when we've accomplished that, then we think about our community. and understand what it is that our community needs from us. That's why we come here as a collection of individual federations. That's why your gifts that you're going to commit to during your caucuses are to your local federations, which then contribute collectively to the national effort, because we understand that our community needs us. But finally, our communities come together and build the collective that we all care about. So, the ups and downs of Tisha B'Av and of Tu B'Av are reflected in everything we do in Jewish life, and we keep them in mind as we lead our way through this time, because this is the leadership of our communities. And there's a great song that many of you know, I hope, that reflects the ups and downs of Jewish life. Al kol eila, al hadvash v'al ha'oketz. Every bee that brings the honey has a sting to be complete. Al bitenu hatinoket shmor eli hatov. And we all learn together to taste the bitter with the sweet. Join me in singing Al kol eila. Al hadvash v'al ha'oketz, al amar v'amatok. Al bitenu hatinoket shmor eli hatov. Al ha'esh hamivoeret, al hamayim hazakim, al ha'ish hashev habayta min hamerchakim. Together. Al kol eileh, al kol eileh, shmon ali eli atov. Al hadvash v'al ha'oketz, al amar v'hamatok, al nata'akor natua, al tishkach et hatikva, hashiveni ve'ashuva, al ha'aretz ha'tova. I'd like to to know as many of you as I possibly can. I'd like to learn about your communities. I'd like to learn about your hopes and dreams as leaders of the Jewish people. Gal, where are you? Raise your hand, stand up. Gal right here. We'll schedule anybody, anytime over the next 2-3 days. We'll do some speed dating during lunches, during breaks. Anytime, I'd love to sit with you, see Gal and sign up for a time. Let's learn together. Let's grow together. Let's lead together in the coming year. Thank you all for being at Retreat.
Thank you, Eric. That was beautiful.
There's a video.
Friends, Chevre, we are here today because we share a common piece of our identities. We gather as proud Jews and leaders committed to strengthening our communities. For each of us, that identity has been built on our own unique experiences. Today, I want to share with you a bit about my Jewish identity and why I am inspired to be on this path with you. It was 1987. I was 6 years old, around the same age as two of our daughters. My grandparents were on a secret mission to the former Soviet Union. They were there to help the refuseniks, Jews who were not allowed to express their Jewish identity or make Aliyah to Israel. My grandparents snuck in all types of items to bring to the Jewish community. My grandpa would run to a payphone and figure out the address. And he and my grandma would visit the families and drop off food, supplies, medicine, sidurim, kippot, and other symbols of Jewish life. My grandma would disguise the addresses and phone numbers and code in her checkbook. My grandparents' courage and their commitment to enabling others to experience their Jewish identity has stuck with me. A generation later, I went with many of you on Cabinet's 2019 mission to Tbilisi, Georgia, and St. Petersburg, Russia. While on that mission, we were joined by Natan Sharansky, the most well-known of the Refuseniks. A few of us had the honor of walking with him and his wife on Shabbat, and I was honored to have an aliyah right after him and stand on the bima at the same time. When he was asked to make a mishaberach, a prayer for someone, he proudly said, Kalal Yisrael, all of Israel. I still feel the pride of Natan saying, Kalal Yisrael. That moment was so emotional and powerful for me, connecting the determination and pride I saw in my grandparents with the journey that we are all on as part of this remarkable cabinet experience. My family immigrated to America like so many, to chase a dream, to build community, to live freely as Jews. My roots are Ashkenazi, from Yaroslav in Central Europe, and Sephardi, from Salonika in present-day Greece. My great-grandparents ultimately made their way to central New Jersey. It is in this tiny borough of Highland Park where my Ashkenazi and Sephardi roots would become one. Just one generation after his father arrived in the United States, my grandpa, Herbert, fought courageously in the battles of Iwo Jima and Saipan during World War II, then returned home and was elected mayor of Highland Park. His passion for service extended to his deeply rooted commitment to helping the Jewish community. Our extended family grew in all different directions, geographically and religiously. Some became more observant, others less so. Some relatives married a Jewish spouse, and others didn't. Growing up, my parents and grandparents always demonstrated the importance of secular civic engagement and remained deeply connected to our Jewish roots. It was not a choice for them. It was always both. My parents were as engaged in coaching sports teams as they were on our synagogue and federation boards. Mission after mission to Israel and other parts of the world, meetings and gatherings at our home. My parents always led by example and made sure that we saw firsthand the importance of being involved in our local Jewish community and fostered an unabiding commitment to Israel, including taking me and my sister on our first mission in 1988 to celebrate Israel's 40th anniversary. This mission had a profound impact on me, and 35 years later, representing Cabinet, I traveled with many of you to celebrate Israel's 75th. None of this happens if not for what my parents modeled for me as leaders in the community. These experiences crystallized for me when my wife, Ilana, and I talked about the path that we want to pave for our own children in creating their Jewish identity. Ilana is a first year, and yes, it took 6 years and 3 kids to convince Ilana to join Cabinet. We are incredibly proud of the roots we are planting in Greater Metro West, New Jersey. And it's not just local. Cabinet and Federation allow us to deepen our impact across the globe. Our identity is not static, and this is why we call leadership a journey. There will be times when we feel more engaged than others, and that's okay. Cabinet allows us to build on our identity, to hone our skills and knowledge, and most importantly, to connect with others that share a common passion and commitment to Jews everywhere. Being in cabinet for the past 6 years has made it crystal clear that there is no Jewish organization in the world that looks after the entire community the way Federation does. We do this work because it matters. Our reasons can be different. For me, it's about modeling for our kids to ensure that the next generation is as connected and committed as we are. Your journey extends beyond you and impacts everyone in your life. What you do today directly impacts what happens tomorrow. This is why we show up. I have learned through my parents and grandparents the importance of preserving and restoring and respecting Jewish identities. The work that all of us are doing strengthens, protects, and educates our community and secures our Jewish identity. We are building this together, and we have so much to celebrate. The 60th year of Cabinet, the 100th year of our local federation, the 75th year of Israel's independence, and we can't take any of it for granted, any of it. And we have a collective responsibility to embrace the various cultural backgrounds, identities, traditions, beliefs, and experiences of our collective community, which will make us that much more resilient. And so here we are in Detroit, the city that was home to my hero's hero, my grandpa's favorite ball player, Hank Greenberg, the first Jewish ball player elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Hank did not consider himself an observant Jew, but faced constant taunts and threats because of his Jewish identity. Later in life, Hank said he found himself wanting to be remembered not as a great ball player, but even more so as a great Jewish ball player. So as we think about our lives, how do we want to be remembered? What will the next generation say about us? What can we do now so that we can ensure that the identities of Jews everywhere are strengthened, protected, and respected? Together, each of us has a distinct identity, our distinct journeys, and we are linked by our common desire to see the Jewish people of the world flourish and thrive. Chevre, you have stepped up and showed up. The future is bright. May we all go from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cabinet was the place to take my interest in being part of the Jewish community to a different level.
To go to the national scale means being surrounded by so many more like-minded people, such as myself, who all are leaders in their communities, who know what it's like to be philanthropic, to have a strong Jewish identity, and to connect with those across the country.
The moment I walked in that room, it was just like the electricity and feeling like I belonged. I was surrounded by people who had the same values and goals. From that moment, I just knew I wanted to join.
It's opportunities throughout the year to connect with people and to experience different aspects of Jewish life and Jewish giving and Jewish community service. When you are connecting with these people in different environments and with different goals and different experiences, you really form a bond. And that just grows and grows every year.
Being able to travel the world with like-minded folks as myself and seeing the world through eyes of Jewish young leaders, meeting folks across the country, across the world, who've had such different experiences in life, and finding that one connection.
I was actually a little surprised by how many things really wowed me and impressed me on the recent mission trip. Being able to see the infrastructure that the Federation has in place.
You get to really experience the entire world of the Jewish community. You get to really see what Jewish life is like in cities around the country and throughout the world.
Giving to others is a part of your own story and a part of your own growth and development. And it's one of those amazing things where we all come out better for having participated.
We've had experiences that we'll remember for the rest of our lives, and that really is something that you can't get just by being part of your local Jewish community. Leadership means putting yourself out there. We're all leaders in different ways, and we all have different skills. And so when you bring a group of leaders together, the impact can really multiply.
It's given me confidence to walk into a room and feel comfortable sharing my ideas and my thoughts and knowing that I'm really making an impact.
We, as the Jewish people, have to take care of each other because no one else is going to do it. We have to support our communities. We have to lead by example, and we have to lead with a spirit of service.
You're going to meet people that are going to be part of your life forever. You're going to share memories, but on top of that, it's going to give you different opportunities to learn about leadership, to learn about what happens in other parts of the world, and how we as Jewish people are part of so much more than our local community.
Sitting in this room are 275 leaders from more than 60 Jewish communities around the US and Canada. Take a moment, look at each other, smile, maybe wave. It is a remarkable thing that we are all here together with a common mission to serve our community and our people. Yes, we have differences. Each of us has a unique story, a unique journey, and a unique history that brought us to this room. We are all at different points in our leadership journeys. Some may be just beginning. You raised your hand for the first time. Others have been involved for a long time. Among our Chevra, we have Federation board chairs, campaign chairs, and board members. How can we together create meaningful change? Last year, I was on a JFNA and Jewish Agency mission to accompany hundreds of Ethiopian Olim to Israel. We were on a plane to Israel, and I was sitting next to Haley Traeger, a fellow seventh year, and we could feel a buzzing of emotion in each Olim, a mixture of hope for a better life and fear of leaving everything you have known behind. Haley and I were sitting next to two sisters who were 6 and 4 at the time. Their parents were in the row behind us with their baby. This little 4-year-old girl, Elsa, was upset because she wanted to be with her mom and she was scared. Her parents were trying to comfort their infant and were overwhelmed. And Haley and I stepped in to help care for the 2 older daughters. This was instinctual, to help someone in need. No matter how young or old, you step up. My life's mission is strengthening the Jewish people and ensuring my children have strong Jewish values. Joining a Federation mission to help Ethiopian Olim was particularly important to me because my family's American Jewish journey began over 75 years ago through remarkable support from Jewish federations. I couldn't think of anything more rewarding than witnessing Olim return to the Promised Land and to be reunified with their families. Every family, every person needs help at some point in their lives. My mom's parents were both Holocaust survivors. They met in a displaced persons camp funded by Jewish Federation partners, JDC. This camp provided my grandparents with a community and support after the trauma of the Holocaust. It was here that my grandmother was reunited with her 2 sisters, the only other surviving members of her family. My grandfather, the only survivor from his family, attended an Ort mechanical trade school for 2 years following the war. ORT is also a partner organization of Jewish federations. And this ORT school focused on teaching survivors how to repair radios and a new invention at the time, the television. The Omaha Jewish community sponsored my grandmother and her 2 sisters, bringing them from Europe to Nebraska. My grandfather joined my grandmother in Omaha after he graduated from his ORT program. Individuals from the Omaha Jewish community ensured my grandparents had the foundation they needed to rebuild their lives, helping with doctors, groceries, apartment, and furniture. The Nebraska Furniture Mart contracted with my grandfather to repair TVs and radios. Because of his help to start, my grandfather built a successful business ensuring security for his family. When they needed help, the Omaha Jewish community stepped up. Remarkable. This relatively small community showed up and dedicated itself to serving Jewish people in their greatest time of need. My father's grandparents immigrated from Russia and settled in Lincoln, Nebraska, where my dad was born. After marrying, my parents decided to raise their family in Lincoln. Being Jewish in Lincoln is different from being Jewish in Omaha. I understand from the outside the difference between these 2 Nebraska cities might seem like splitting hairs. And perhaps the hairs on an ear of corn. But in Nebraska, it's a huge difference. Lincoln is a much smaller Jewish community. Growing up, I felt like an outsider among my non-Jewish peers. My family experienced anti-Semitism, and that had a real impact on me. I felt like something was missing. During the summers, Jewish overnight camps saved me from feeling alone. I was able to taste being in a community with other Jews. This connectedness left me wanting more. I daydreamed of living in a vibrant Jewish community when I grew up. I moved to Arizona for college and stayed for graduate school. I started to build a life in Arizona and never looked back. I fell in love with a more robust Jewish community. I also fell in love. My husband, Benji, who's here today, invited me to Phoenix Federation's gala. This was my first connection to Federation. The gala honored a community leader named Sherman Minkoff. As I heard speakers describe his remarkable lifetime of service to the Jewish community, I asked myself, what am I doing that is beyond myself and my clients at my therapy practice? What am I doing to support the Jewish community? I realized that I needed to show up in a different way, that I needed to make a greater impact in my community. I was so inspired by Sherman Minkoff that I reached out to him and I volunteered at the Jewish Genetic Testing Organization that he helped start in Phoenix. Once I started, I needed to do more. I joined their board, then my local federation board. I've kept increasing my involvement, one small step or giant leap at a time. You know, I'm so glad that I was moved to get involved. I get to give both my time and my philanthropy. And I get to be a part of this community that supports each other. This is how leadership is circular. We give and people give back. We give and people give back. Speaking of Phoenix leadership, Rachel Hoffer is here today. Our Federation Board Chair of Phoenix, a dear friend and a past cabinet co-chair. So over the past few years, I felt the love and support of the Phoenix Jewish community. In 2018, my beloved mother-in-law, Aviva, passed away suddenly. She was more than just a mother-in-law. She was also a mentor to me. She showed me how to keep a kosher home and really supported me and my family. Aviva never had a daughter, so she showered me with love and girly presence, and we relished in each other's company. She was the kindest person that I have ever met. When she passed away, I was 7 months pregnant with my daughter, Naomi Aviva, and had twin boys, Asher and Joey, who were 2.5 at the time. When Naomi was born and my husband held her for the first time, I wept that Naomi was coming into a world that existed without Aviva. The world felt broken for me and Benji, and the Phoenix Jewish community showed up for us. A Federation professional created a meal train, and the community stepped up for my family, a family in need that just needed some support. This is a community that's present, that steps up, and it has stepped up for me. Thanksgiving Day almost 2 years ago, my grandmother, our family's matriarch, and the last living Holocaust survivor passed away. This was hard, and again, I felt the pressure of making an impact in the world. I no longer had my grandmother to tell her Holocaust story. It was now my responsibility to be her voice. I imagined what she would say. I began noticing mannerisms and characteristics of late family members within my children. I started telling my children stories about their family history and values that are important to us. I also ensured that my gift to my local community will continue to pass my lifetime. This year, I endowed my lion, which means my lion-level gift to the Phoenix Federation will be made in perpetuity after my death. There is a limited impact that we each can make in our lifetime. So I stepped up for my generation and the next generation. I want my children to see that my last action is to help those in need and strengthen our communities. To me, this is the essence of leadership. We show up. We show up by physically being there, by raising money, by sharing our knowledge. Sometimes we need, sometimes we give. If we're not the ones giving and leading, then who's going to do it when we need it? We also see this within Cabinet. What I love about Cabinet is that we are local, we are national, we are global. The work we are doing to support people like you, like me in our communities, we are doing all over the world. We travel to these communities with Cabinet. We learn from one another how to make an impact locally and beyond. We have been and will continue to go around the world together. The program has taken me to amazing places to see the impact we are having on Jews all over. Whether you're in Phoenix with a robust Jewish community, or you're in a smaller community like Lincoln, whatever community you are in, you can be the person that shows up. Like the Omaha Jewish community was for my grandparents. You can be the person who helps Ukrainian refugees resettle in your community or Israel. Like the Phoenix Jewish community was, who helped care for Benji and I when we needed it most. You can be the person who is there to support your community in need. I invite you to think about how you step into and dance within this leadership. This is how we show up. This is how we lead. We continue that cycle of support to make sure that we are there for our Jewish community, and so it's strong, supported, and cared for. This is Cabinet. Thank you for all showing up and being here for me.
Please welcome the immediate past chair of the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit, Dennis Bernard.
Starting today, Gary Torgo, it looks like you're now the chair. Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis Bernard, as you heard. I am the current co-chair of our Jewish Federation here in Detroit. More importantly, my bride and I, who are Cabinet alum, we now have our son, so it's multi-generational on Cabinet, so that's our big news. Today, I have the privilege and honor, and we're always supposed to say this, of introducing our governor, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. And they wrote me this long speech on how to do it, but let me tell you what I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you that she always wanted to be governor, because she actually wanted to be an ESPN talking head. And anybody who's gotten into a CNN, Fox News, or Twitter war with her would know she would have been great on ESPN. Second, I can tell you that she's from a mixed marriage. Her father was a Republican, her mother was a Democrat, and she's got a little bit of both. I'm not going to tell you that she was minority leader in the House and the Senate, but I am going to tell you she has been fully committed to try and run our state in a bipartisan way. But what I will tell you is, when I first met Governor Whitmer, she came to my office and we had a very tense conversation because she knows I'm not always on the same side of the aisle with her. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And what we talked about that day was her commitment. And she promised me 3 things. She promised me that she would continue our Jewish community's line item budget, where $4 million each year would come to our community just for our social service agencies. She lied. It's $6 million under her. Second, she committed that the very first trip that she would make out of the country would be to Israel. This time she didn't lie, because the very first trip was with Gary Torgo and myself and a bunch of other leaders from around the state. We went to Israel together, and she signed a memorandum of understanding between our 2 countries for trade and import. The third thing, I made her promise, and she's held this. Anytime I reach out to her, whether she knows I'm going to agree or disagree with her, she takes that call, because she does want to hear all sides before she makes up her mind. And I have found that in my 35, 40 years of being involved in the fringes of politics very unusual. And she has kept that to this day. Anytime we want to talk about anything, she's open to listen. So with that, I introduce you to my governor, Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Thank you. Well, that was the Michigan State fight song, in case some of my non-Spartans here were wondering what that music was. Well, thank you, Dennis. I so appreciate that introduction. I'm not used to people saying she lied in an introduction and getting an applause, but I am very proud of the work that we've been able to do together, and I'm grateful to have been able to serve as the governor for the last 5 years of the great state of Michigan. Thank you. And, special thanks, obviously, to Dennis, with whom I traveled to Israel. It was my first trip, and I didn't know it would be my only trip of my first term, because, of course, shortly thereafter we went into the pandemic. But I went for a week with Gary Torgo and a group of business leaders here from Southeast Michigan, and then stayed an extra week with my family, who came over, and we were able to tour. And it was really a life-changing trip. I had been to Israel before, but not as an adult, and certainly not with my children and my husband. That second week was just incredible. So I'm so pleased to be here with all of you today. I have great admiration for the work that you do and the reason that this organization is so incredibly important. I would like to talk a little bit about this cabinet and the current and future leaders of the North American Jewish community. Such an important organization, but also reminders every single day why organizations like this are important. I'd like to talk a little bit about Michigan and what Michigan has meant to the Jewish community and vice versa. The first Jewish immigrants came to Michigan in the 18th century and settled right here in the great city of Detroit. In 1850, Detroit's Jewish community was 51 people strong. 10 merchants, 2 cigar makers, a peddler, a blacksmith, a grocer, a physician, and a portrait painter. The basics in 1850. Within 3 years, the community doubled, and now it's nearly 100,000 strong. And the story of Michigan's Jewish community is really the story of Michigan. People coming together to build better lives for themselves and their families and future generations. Jewish Michiganders are teachers and healthcare professionals and small business owners. They're legislators and statewide officials like our very own Attorney General, Dana Nessel. Yes, we should clap for Dana Nessel. We have an incredible, strong Jewish community, and as we see a rise in anti-Semitism nationally and across all states, including this one, we must continue to work together to fight back. It is on all of us to root out anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred. We have a lot of work to do, but the only way we're going to be successful in doing it is by working together. In Cabinet, I know that you are learning how to work with people who are different, have different perspectives, and how to get things done. And in today's environment, it's critical. There's a tendency nowadays to never give anyone the benefit of the doubt, or to question someone's inherent goodness. And that's the opposite of how I was raised in that household that Dennis described. Dad, a Republican who worked for Bill Milliken, my mom, a Democrat who worked for our Attorney General, who was Attorney General for 37 years, Frank Kelly. They taught me and my siblings how to disagree without being disagreeable. And that's what I always strive to do. I will work with anyone who wants to get stuff done because my parents taught me that I cannot do the work alone. And as a former member of our state legislature, I never had the opportunity to serve in the majority. I was always in the minority. But it didn't stop me from reaching across the aisle and trying to develop relationships and to find common ground. And as governor, I've signed over 1,000 bipartisan bills and gotten 5 bipartisan balanced budgets done. A budget, the 5th of which I will be signing later today here in Detroit. This is the first Democratic majority in 40 years in the state. But I've told my colleagues in the legislature we will continue to try to find common ground because Michigan is stronger when we can connect at the core and get important big things done. And I know that is the ethos of this organization as well. Like all of you, my values are a culmination of my lived experiences. I just announced my run for state office, and I was caring for my newborn daughter when I had learned that my mom was dying of brain cancer. And that was the period of my life that shaped me more than any other. I was a sandwich generation. At the young age of 29, I was both caring for a dying parent and a child who I've just brought into the world. I remember a point during those years when I was really struggling, and there was a wonderful hospice worker who gave me a pamphlet to read. It told the story of an old woman who was on a subway ride, and a man entered the subway, and his 6 children were running around, creating all sorts of havoc. They were really disruptive, they were kind of disrespectful, and she was getting ready to blow her top and tell him what she thought of his parenting style, because these wild kids. And just when she was leaning over to tell him that, he confided to her that his wife had just died and he didn't know how he's going to raise these kids on his own. And I will always often reflect on and share that story with people because none of us knows what another human being is going through. None of us knows precisely anyone else's story, and that's why telling our stories and listening and learning and getting smarter and building community is so incredibly important. 2 decades after my mother passed, I still think of that lesson. We all have a story to be told. Just like Walt Whitman or Ted Lasso for more recent example, be curious, not judgmental, about one another's stories. And that's why I believe common ground and the seeking and the seeing the humanity in one another is so incredibly important. And that's what we are fighting for. This year, we've shifted into a new gear. Just a few days ago, I signed a bipartisan education budget making record investments in teachers, in children, in schools. We took steps toward pre-K for all, and now Michigan will be one of only a couple states in the country that provides free breakfast and lunch to all students across the state. When we destigmatize food insecurity, we benefit so many. We take a fundamental need for a child who we hope can learn while they're in school, not to be worrying about where their next meal is going to come from or be distracted by a grumbling tummy. Earlier this year, we rolled back the retirement tax on our seniors, and we quintupled the working families tax credit, we pulled 25,000 families out of working poverty just in that one policy change alone. And we've repealed an extreme abortion ban, ended hair discrimination, and strengthened civil rights for the LGBTQ+ community. We've enacted, thank you. And we've enacted common sense gun violence prevention laws to save lives. Background checks, safe storage, extreme risk protection orders. And we've done all this and kept growing our economy, driving unemployment to a 23-year low and bringing thousands of manufacturing jobs online and bringing them home, and creating free paths to skill training so that Michiganders can get into these good paying jobs. Because here in Michigan, I have always focused on building bridges. Some people want to build walls and separate us. I want to build bridges and connect us. Yeah. So when I talk to children in schools, I often ask them, can you imagine if you had 10 million bosses? And their eyes get wide. 10 million bosses. I said, do you think my bosses ever agree on anything all at once? And the answer is no. But at the end of the day, when you stay focused on seeing another person's humanity, on solving a problem, you find out what really matters, and that can be the North Star for the work that we do, whether you are in cabinet or you are the governor of the great state of Michigan. When I was in Israel, we signed a partnership with an Israeli-based NGO, Startup Nation Central, that connected Israel-based companies with operations here in Michigan. On your mission last spring, you heard from the U.S. ambassador to Latvia. I was recently in Latvia because Michigan's European partner is Latvia. For 30 years, Michigan National Guard and the Latvian Army have worked very closely together. And I was there because Latvia is so crucial to Ukraine as we continue to fight for Ukrainian democracy. I was proud to be there, and I'm grateful for all the work that you are doing on a variety of these fronts. Two quick observations. You don't need my advice, but I'll share a few observations. To fill a big seat, you can't care who you're sitting next to, because while the problems we face are often not new, they require innovation to overcome, and collaboration begets progress. My second observation, to paraphrase the Talmud, you are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Sometimes it feels like there's an ongoing, never-ending contest to build up a problem and then just talk about the futility of ever trying to solve it. What good does that do anyone? Doubt ends with action. The only way that things get better, not fixed, but better, is if you roll up your sleeves and do the work. I have the best job in the world because I get to see that happen every single day. I see problems that people have been fighting to solve for decades get solved, get addressed, get made better with the stroke of a pen or the cutting of a ribbon. And that's what I want to remind you all. Doing the work is the only thing that works. That's our legacy here in Michigan. In September 1850, a dozen German immigrants established Temple Beth El, the first Jewish congregation in Michigan. It started in a rented room above a tobacco store and eventually expanded into the historic temple in Detroit's North End in 1922. They did the work and built a powerful community that lives on today. Their spirit is alive and well in Michigan, and I can see it as I address you all in this room. Before I go, I want to talk about this beautiful city of Detroit. I'm sure when you heard retreat, Detroit wasn't the first place that you had in mind. You might not know a lot about Detroit, but this is an underdog city that doesn't quit. And while the rest of the country may have counted us out at times, we are building something really special here. And I'm so glad that you are here to see it all firsthand. While you're here, spend some time walking around our city. Talk to local business owners and restaurant staff or other visitors that you pass on the sidewalk. Michiganders are really friendly. You just got to talk to them. I hope that you see what you see in Detroit and across Michigan is a place that we are building to ensure freedom meets opportunity. We're ensuring that anyone can be successful here in Michigan, can make it in Michigan, no matter who they are or where they come from, how they worship, how they identify. I encourage you all, as you think about where to raise your family, start your business, or lead an organization, I hope Michigan is in the contention. I want you to know that you have friends and partners all across the state of Michigan, me included. I thank you for welcoming me. I hope that you'll explore Detroit, use the hashtag #ThisIsCabinet, and have an amazing, retreat. Thank you.
How fabulous was that? But I don't think I've had a chance to say this in 5.5 years. You finally let me down. Later this afternoon, I thought she would take the privilege of letting you know. Later this afternoon, when our governor signs our budget for this coming year, our governor and our legislation put together a one-time $15 million funding for our Jewish community to help ensure our safety, and that's never been done before. When nationally there's partisan sniping over safety, both in Washington and other states, and they're cutting, our governor stepped forward and had a huge one-time funding. The other thing I want to point out is later today you're going to have the opportunity, if you're able to be in that session, to meet with Ambassador John Rakolta, who was a Republican appointee to be the ambassador to the UAE, and he's a lifelong Republican. And he was in the room when they passed the Abrams Accords. He was one of the 7-8 people in the room, so it's a fascinating person, lifelong Republican. And when it came time for the governor to appoint the lead person to work on a task force, to work on our population, she reached out across the aisle and asked Ambassador John Rakolta to lead that effort. That's bipartisan. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Governor Whitmer, for being here today. We loved hearing how the state of Michigan can solve problems while working together. We emulate this in the Jewish community.
Cabinet Retreat 2023 has now officially begun. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. We will have a brief break and be back in this room at 11:45? 11:50. So we'll see you then. Thank you.